Okay, I'm going to talk about the mark of the beast. I've heard a lot of people, I tell a lot of people, I say, hey, look, listen, you know, the mark of the beast doesn't take place before Jesus returns, like everybody's taught. I was taught that when I was young, and I used to think, wow, how do these people know this stuff? Because I used to think, man, this is, what makes them so learned on all this stuff, and how do they understand this language? And so what happened is a lot of people just keep jumping on that same bandwagon over and over and over again. And the fact is, it's not true. It really isn't true. Understanding these resurrection time frames helps to understand the mark of the beast and those who will be beheaded during that time frame. Okay, so the one thing you have to understand, Jesus returns in Revelation 14:1, no question about it. The talk about the mark of the beast begins in 14:9, and in 14:13 it says, blessed are those who reject the mark of the beast, and of course they're killed, they're beheaded for it. Okay, so what is it about this that's hard to understand for some people? And what makes it hard is chapter 13. And it's because chapter 13 covers a lot of ground about the beast and about images and about receiving a mark and things like this. Okay, so what chapter 13 does is chapter 13 tells you what's going to happen, but chapter 14 tells you when it's going to happen. Okay, and by understanding the resurrections, you understand that the believers and the faithful are already gone, but there's a remnant of people left who will have to go through this time period, and this comes after the period of wrath. So you have the wrath segment, and then you have this time period where after this wrath segment, the world has to kind of rebuild itself. They have to rebound, and so what they do is they take on a formulation that was there just before all these things happened, the wrath and everything, and it falls back onto a previous lifestyle and a previous choice of the world governments, and so that's when they bring on this mark of the beast, but it's prepared before Jesus returns, but it doesn't actually take place until Jesus returns. Okay, so let's look at the beginning of this stuff, and I'm going to start out in chapter 13, and I'm going to kind of explain how the believers are here for part of it, but not the rest of it, and hopefully you'll understand this. So let me start with this. Chapter 13 on verse 8, it says here, all that dwell on earth shall worship him, everyone except those whose names have been written in the book of life. It says, everyone whose name has not been written from the foundation of the world in the book of life from the Lamb that has seen us. So everyone shall worship him whose names have not been written from the foundation of the world. Okay, and that would be, who would that be? Well, who does that include? Well, that includes your false teachers, your false leaders, your government leaders that are not chosen. It includes what it says, everyone whose name is not chosen from the foundation of the earth. Okay, so those people worship it. Now, what does it mean, worship? Does it mean the bowing over, Allah, Shamba, Amba, Jumba, whatever that stuff is? No. Doesn't mean they're going to a church podium and they're like, oh Father, please, No, that's not what it means. Worship doesn't mean. Worship means that, hey, they take it as, hey, that's a great idea. I think it's a really great idea. I think we should implement it into our laws, and I think we should enforce it because I really like that idea. And that's worshiping. Okay, that's how it gets started. But chapter 13 is a division chapter, okay? And part of it is based on the fact that, let's go to, let's see. Oh, the verse before that, verse 7. It was given him to make war with the saints and to overcome them, and it was given him authority over every tribe, people, and tongue. Okay, so making war with the saints, it doesn't mean it's an out-out battle. What it means is like every day we're at war against the powers and principalities because they choose to do things we don't want them to do. They choose, hey, you're going to go to war. You join the army, you're going to war. We're going to go fight this other country because that's what we're going to do. We're the powers to be, and we're going to do it. And so that's what that that verse is meaning about making war with the saints is going against the principles of being a Christian, the principles of being good to each other, the principle of, hey, why can't we all get along? And so the war with the saints is, and overpowering them is I am your government, I am your leader, you're going to do what I tell you to do. And we see this every day in everyday life through laws, through courts, through being falsely accused, even accused and being punished, overly severely punished or something. All kinds of ways that Satan is making war with the saints. When this system gets set up, obviously it will probably get worse, okay? But this takes place while the saints are here, because you can't have a war against the saints unless they're here. So let's go on. I call the division in this chapter is dividing at chapter 10 or verse 10 and verse 11. So let's go on and look at this here like this. It starts off by saying, I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake like a dragon. Well, two horns like a lamb. What is that? Peaceful? Two divisions, two continents, two what? It isn't 100% clear on what that two is. I've had my own theories once in a while on what it is, but I've never come to anything solid on what that is. But it doesn't matter, and the reason why is because this is another beast. This is not the same one, okay? Because right now, from chapter 11, verse 11 on, there's no Christians here. There's no saints here, okay? You got to understand that what goes on here is that this second dragon does a lot of great signs, a lot of great things. Christians are gone, the rapture is gone, people are out of here. He deceives the whole world. He's like, hey, I'm God, I'm here, I'm going to do all these things. Listen to me, and we're going to straighten this all out. So down at the end of it, we hear something. It talks about the number of a beast, and the number is of a man, and his number is 666. It says 666, but we commonly call it 666, which really should be called 666. But we'll just stick with 666. And this is the number of a man. Well, let's examine part of it. Well, before I get into that, I'm going to say this. A lot of the false leaders have been telling people like there's going to be an Antichrist man come up, because it says man. It has a word right there, man. I can read it. You can read it. We can all read it. That an Antichrist man is going to rise up. He's going to be the world leader, and he's going to bring on the mark, and he's going to have all the answers for all the government and everything else, and yada, yada, yada. Well, it's not a man. And as Paul described, the man of sin, son of perdition, who sits on the throne, proclaims himself to be God. So it's not a man as in person. Going a little farther, if you really research what Jesus said, you will never ever find him calling himself the Son of God. He always called himself the Son of Man. For the Son of Man must suffer many things, yada, yada, yada. And you see the Son of Man sitting on the clouds, things like that. Okay. So what is he referring to when he says Son of Man? Well, there's a lot of things he can be referring to, but one thing he can simply be referring to is the man means God. It also means God. It just hasn't been put into any text as somebody saying, well, you know what? It also means God. I never thought about that. So if you go back and correlate the thing that Paul said, that the man of sin will proclaim himself to be a God, and then you go back and listen to this, here is the wisdom, let him have understanding, number of beasts, for it's the number of a man, or the number of a God, and his number shall be 666. Then it fits in with all the other scriptures that are written about it, him being a God. And so he brings on this mark. Now, it doesn't say anything about Christians being here during that time period, does it? No, it doesn't. So chapter 13, when it was broken down into segments of verses and stuff like that, it should have been divided at verse 11, because verse 11 is the prelude to the mark of the beast that takes place in chapter 14. Okay, so understand there's a division in this, and there's a time segment in there. And the book of Revelation doesn't give us all the lengths of these time segments, how long they transpire and everything like that. You have to just understand that that's what it's talking about. Um, I don't know what else more that I could say than that, except that just don't buy into these movies and these preachers, you know, that's talking about the mark of the beast and Christians are here and blah, blah, blah. No, that doesn't happen that way. Uh, they never show Jesus is back when they show the mark of the beast in these movies. Why is that? Because they don't understand, or they don't want to go against or conflict too far into what people believe. They really need to show, it really needs to be a movie based on facts, not based on fiction, if people are going to understand this stuff better. Because people will watch a movie and believe it before they'll ever take the time to read a book they don't even understand. And that brings us to a little bit of literacy problem here, is because people don't read it because they don't understand it. And a lot of them have literacy issues, even in modern language, in their own language, can't speak properly and write properly, even in their own language. So how in the world can you figure out something like the Bible? But take my word for it, these things take place after Jesus has returned. The first part of chapter 13 takes place. That's the continuation of the 70th week. It takes place where Satan will proclaim to be God. The first part of it does. The 42 months that's missing from the last part of the 70th week of Daniel. And that happens while we're still here. And there's going to be a great falling away when that takes place, because people are going to say, hey, you know what? That's God. God's over there in the Middle East. I'm going to go over there and see God. I'm going to go over there and worship God. And so people are going to fall away all the way around the world. They're going to fall away from believing in the biblical Jesus, which a lot of them already don't believe in the biblical Jesus. They believe in a false God and a false Jesus that's being taught. But they'll get away from it, and that'll bring on the great falling away. And of course, that's when Jesus said, when these things occur, you know, it's like time, he's going to be there. And of course, the abomination of desolation is Satan standing in the temple proclaiming that he is God, when in fact he isn't. And so when Israel's surrounded, you see it's desolation. It doesn't mean destruction, it means desolation. It means that Satan is about ready to show up. So I hope this helps, and I hope I covered it enough to get you going and get you reading on this stuff. But you got to understand that Jesus is back on earth when the mark of the beast takes place. The believers are gone during that time frame, and chapter 13 is divided into two segments. And I hope that helps you understand it.